Um, the first item on our agenda is, wait a minute. The first item on our agenda are the police and fire AEDs. Michael Dick was the one who was questioning why we needed so many, but I understand that every vehicle and potential vehicle needs to be equipped. So in my mind, that explains it all. I don't know if anybody like Ralph, Brian, or Francine has any further questions on it.
Well, the only comment I did make is I don't want us to be buying more product than we actually can use. And there were a couple there that seemed to me to be, as Mike has said, you have to question whether we really need all of these, particularly where there's the fire department's got them, the schools have got them, the DPW's got them. I mean, there are a lot of, the question is, are we coordinating across the number of people who actually are, the number of institutions that really have these things? That's all. And then I guess the other thing is, what is the current age of the ones we've got, and what is the age or the expected life of the new ones? Those are the questions I have.
So these are the ones for the police department are about, they're coming up on 10 years old, but the model that we have, they're not going to, we get a letter saying they're not going to support these anymore effective December, I believe.
Okay.
And they have a deal where they'll give us $300 each. And as to the other question, it's really, it's not the type of equipment you want to go looking for. When you need it, you need it. It's not like you misplaced your keys. And some buildings are required to have them, schools and libraries and town hall. I think that's, Bob, it's part of the fire code or building code. I don't know. It's definitely part of a law, but I'm not sure which one.
Yeah, as far as the AEDs, and 10 years ago when they first started putting these into the public, the idea was to have one on every street corner. In fact, there are apps out there that you can actually dial it up and see where the nearest AEDs are. And the science behind it, as I understand it, is that if you can get an AED to somebody in 60 seconds or less and shock them, you have an 80% chance of bringing them back to a viable rhythm. For every minute it takes to get past that, you lose 10%. So if you get out to, if you get out to 6 minutes, which is usually the drive time for a fire vehicle and sometimes for a police vehicle, the chances of you getting a viable rhythm are down in the 20–30% range. So that's why they're in as many places as possible. And, in the land of the folks, the American Heart Associations and so forth, they'd like to see them in every school bus, in every DPW truck, in every other thing, so that you can get one to somebody as quickly as possible. So that's in essence why they're on every single one of the fire department units. And I believe the same thing with the police department. And we have them in the town buildings. And we do coordinate that. We have a running record of how old each one is and what the life expectancy is, and right down to the pads that have expiration dates. So one thing we don't want to have is to all of a sudden, in fact, we even check them every day in the buildings, because you can just look in the window of the cabinet and see if it's flashing with a little X, which actually is good. If it's flashing red, it's bad. So that means the batteries went south. And that's kind of the thought process behind them. I can answer any other questions, but that's kind of why we're trying to replace the ones we're trying to replace. Phillips, who does a lot of the stuff for us, won't service these after a certain point. It's, obviously they want to sell us new ones, so they take the old ones offline.
It's, if there's one piece of equipment we carry that actually saves lives, it's these. And we save a dozen people over the last decade for sure.
That's a lot. Wow.
We generally, a lot of times, because we're already on the road, the officers will get there and, we'll deliver a shock with them. It'll be enough to sustain them till the fire department gets there with the real one. They have the, we have the kids version. They have the real one. But it's, and they all talk to each other. So it interfaces with the one that's on the ambulance. so they can plug right in.
A curious question. I know that several people that we know have implants these days. What do you do about the fact that people are actually getting shocked by their implanted device? Are you aware of that when you see somebody? I mean, how do you know whether or not you're actually duplicating something?
So the good news is for the paramedics that usually if you have an implanted defibrillator, it sits up high, just under their collarbone, and they know where to look.
Okay.
And if they see it, the American Heart Association would say shock them anyway. Because if you don't, dead is dead. So just don't put the pad on top of the electronic device. Just move the pad. Right. So it's that's kind of how that works. But you hope that the internal defibrillator has done its thing and has kept you from having to have us put the big stuff on you. But as far as American Heart, I think the protocol, as I understand it, and remember, I'm not a paramedic. I don't even play one on TV. Those guys know exactly what they're up to and how they have to deal with an internal defibrillator.
Okay.
The great thing about the ones we carry, these ones that we're looking to purchase, is they really don't let you make a mistake. It reads your rhythm, and the machine knows it's impossible. It's impossible to if a shock isn't advised, it'll tell you, and it just won't shock. But we've had to dry people off. If you're wet, we have to dry you off. We have to shave people if they're particularly hairy. With this, the kit comes with a razor. You have to get the hair off them. So you get a shave from a policeman.
Any more, Ralph?
No, I guess the other question, do you get a warranty out of these? I mean, the new ones you're getting.
Usually, yes. It did, and I know that we've paid for, especially with the big units, the monitor defibrillators that are on the ambulance. We pay for that. I believe when we buy these, they have a warranty for X, and then we buy the extended warranty to get them through to the end of their usable life. Michelle's shaking her head, so I am correct about that.
We haven't had any problems with these either. I mean, besides we changed the pads. I think there's expiration dates on the pads, and we go through and change them. And the batteries die like in about 3 or 4 years. We change out the batteries, but we've had no problems with them.
And as Chief Quigley said, they are technically they're slightly bigger and badder than the ones that they might hang in an airport or a bus terminal or anything else, but they operate the same way. They really are point and shoot from a standpoint of you open up the pads, the pad, the pictures on the pads tell you where to put them, and then you just push the button to turn it on and get out of the way. And it does its thing. And if it tells you, to do compressions, then you do compressions. If it tells you to stand back, then you stand back, and it does its thing. So it is the algorithm that they use is really good, and they don't take a lot of training to be able to make them go.
Thanks.
Any further questions by anybody? Francine? Brian? Well, I can't see you, Brian, so I don't know if you're shaking your head or not, and you've turned off your speaker, so we'll assume you don't have any.
Sam, no questions. I'm just dealing with a mischievous dog in the background. Y'all didn't need to witness it.
Okay.
But I heard all the questions in the discussion. I guess I do have one question. Chief Quigley, your police officers, what training do they have to use these, or is it literally just point and shoot?
So every police officer in Massachusetts is a trained first responder. So that's it's called a professional rescuer. So it's one step above, it's below EMT and 2 steps below paramedic, but it's a professional rescuer, and we're trained every year on how to use these in CPR, and it's called first responder.
Perfect.
And along that line, Brian, everybody, we try to do this with just about everybody. We're trying to teach the CPR classes, and the use of the AEDs is part of the CPR class. So anybody that's certified in CPR can run an AED.
We even teach, Sandy Beach has one. sailing club, yacht club. So everybody's, everybody has one, and the fire department generally trains all those folks every summer.
Perfect. Thank you.
Any other questions? Well, chiefs, thank you very much. I appreciate you taking time because you've been a little busy this last week.
Just a touch. And Ralph,
Yeah,
just put me
okay.
back to work, so I gotta go for a ride. So you guys enjoy the rest of your meeting.
Okay, it's just north of Sandy Beach as you go up as you come up on the rise of the hill, as you're going up toward the top of that hill from Sandy Beach going west. Okay.
Okay, so we the old people would say across from Haggerty's house.
Yes,
Approximately right, a little bit higher up than that. Yeah.
I think it's on the same side as Haggerty's house.
Okay. I'll go
Those
take
of
a
us
look
who've
at it
been here
right.
for a while
Thank
know
you.
which house that is.
Yeah.
If you haven't been here long enough,
Well,
well,
I think it's probably closer to the Gropius house. You want to know the actual one, but that's okay.
yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It's past.
I'm gonna start throwing out old names. Top of Chief Quigley's head, Michelle's head, they're all gonna blow off at this point.
If any of you guys are interested, that sailboat's coming out Friday. 1
How are they
o'clock.
going to do it?
Crane.
No kidding. Wow. It's $1
Yeah,
million
it shouldn't be
boat.
that hard to do. It's lying on its side. It's just above the high water mark.
So we don't want to
Jack it up, put some planks under it and slide it down.
Oh my
The
God, that's
fuel,
$1
we're afraid
million
of the
boat.
fuel.
You don't do that.
I think
Yeah, you're assuming it still floats and there's no hole in the bottom.
Well,
Well,
how do we know that? You can always throw a piece of canvas over it and tie it tight and hope it doesn't leak too much.
Little flex seal, they should be fine. I seen the commercial.
You're gonna
spoken
have
as
to
an
come
old
in over-
sailor, Sam.
You have to come in over power lines, don't you, Bill?
Yeah,
You
yeah.
do. Yeah.
Yep.
What
And
I
one of the
think I
problems is
read is
that
that-
mast is listening towards the power lines as well.
Yeah.
Okay, I want to keep moving
Yeah,
here.
all right, we'll let you go. Thank you.
Yeah,
Bill's
thanks,
gonna
guys.
shut us off.
Okay.
Our next item is school building facilities update. And
Actually,
Michelle,
Sam-
I guess you must have all that information because I have none.
I do have some of that information, but should we vote on those?
Oh, yeah, we should vote on the AEDs, very definitely. You want
Okay.
to do that before?
Sure.
I'll entertain a motion to approve or recommend the purchase of the AEDs for police and fire. Anybody want to make it?
Sure, so moved. I move we approve the AEDs for police and fire in the amount of, Michelle, what's the number?
I can't remember the total.
I believe
number.
it's $30,706.
$30,706.
Okay. Do we have a second?
Yeah, I'll second.
Thank you, Ralph. All those in favor? Ralph?
Aye, Ralph, aye. Yep.
Sam? Aye. Francine?
Francine Lyons, aye.
And Brian Host?
Brian Host, aye.
Thank you. Okay, Michelle, now facilities at the schools.
So I don't know if anyone was able to attend the meeting on Tuesday. I had spotty service at best, so I was in and out of the meeting. I did get a recap from Chris as to, the next steps of the meeting. Was anyone on that? Did anyone join in?
I did. This is Francine,
Oh,
but
good.
but I too, service seemed to go in and out a little bit for me, but I was able to join.
Okay, so I think the end result of the meeting from what I understand is they approved the need for a building assessment study, not a feasibility study, because that'll come after the statement of interest is submitted to the Mass Building, the MSBA. So what they're looking for right now, and I believe Chris has a placeholder for this to be funded, is a building assessment study so they can then fill out the statement of interest, is how I understand it. In order to fill out the statement of interest, you have to have an intimate knowledge of your facility, where the failures are, what's needed, and actually what you're applying for. So they are going to, I think it comes in about, from what we were told from John Lemieux, who works for Vertex, that this study should come in under $100,000. And it's not a feasibility study, it's a building assessment. So we need to put out an RFP to have that done. And then we're also talking about having someone staff this committee. And is it wise to hire like a Vertex or a larger company like that to have someone come and staff the committee that's knowledgeable about the MSBA process? So they're discussing that now. That's what I heard from the meeting. Francine, if I missed anything or you'd like to add anything, please do. That's very high level from the information I received.
No, I think that was a great summary, Michelle. What was interesting to me was the time it takes, the process in total. So they described it as a 7 to 8 year process. And it was interesting because I think someone had mentioned this last week prior to the meeting that, hopefully they ask a lot of the same questions that capital budget would. And I think that's in fact, it sounded very much like that conversation, that the whole point is to vet all the options. For instance, one of the things that was mentioned a couple times was, does it make more sense to replace, to build a whole new building or replace what you have? So my point being that I think they do push to look for the best option, not just, a single path.
Is this, they're looking for, I haven't seen a capital request on this. Have they submitted one?
No,
Well, then, are we considering this for the special town meeting?
nope. So this
Oh,
is just
okay.
informational for you as we go through the process, because it is going to become, it's at some point in time, it is going to become a capital request. And as we talk about the capital 10-year plan,
Mhm.
we just need to be aware that this is what's happening. So we're not blindsided. We submit the statement of interest and then all of a sudden they're going to fund us. But the way they fund you is a little wonky too, from what I heard from the presentation, is people think, if you get 30%, it's 30% in total, but it's not. It's 30% of an actual value that they deem is appropriate, is the way I understood it. Francine, does
Okay.
that make sense?
Yeah,
They decide what the total appropriate value is, and then you get 30% of that. Has nothing to do with what you might come up with.
Well, there are eligible costs and ineligible costs, and that's what, I don't recall specifically what would be eligible versus ineligible. So, maybe if you have to do some sort of, this is just an example, the way I kind of tried to understand it. So if you have to do some site work to prepare the site, the cost associated with that might not be an eligible cost. So you're not going to get any reimbursement for that work.
Okay.
So you really have to think about, and so that was the point that one of the points that hit home is, just as Michelle said, it's not 30% or 40% or whatever that proportion is off the total cost. It's a much smaller amount. So your effective reimbursement is probably much smaller. And so the gentleman, I'm sorry, I'm blanking, went so far as to say, you may, or a district may determine that it's not worth the reimbursement because the amount that you actually get reimbursed is much smaller than what you'd expect because of what's eligible and ineligible. And going back to the time frame, from beginning to end, it sounded to me like, once you came up with a number, you were kind of locked in. And he pointed to an example that school districts that were in this process now, or started the process pre-COVID, and now you see all of these expenses, all the material costs go up so dramatically, they're not going to get reimbursed for that, it sounded like. So there is no inflation factor, if you will, applied to it. So, and so that goes back to the timing, that depending on your timing, I mean, you may think you're getting, you know, X dollars, but it could be something much less if by the time you're able to pull the trigger, costs have gone up as well. So there's a lot of factors going into it, and what you ultimately get may be very different than what you thought going in.
Well, it seems like what you need to do is find out what their approved value is and then take 30% of that, and that will tell you what you're getting. And then you'll ask the contractor to give you an estimate of the total job. And that'll tell you the difference between what you're getting and what the contractor is going to charge you is going to be what the town's responsible for.
Right. It's Sam and Francine, correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems a lot more convoluted than that, only because there are only select contractors that can actually bid on this job, select project managers that can run this job. And they try to award fairly, is how I understood it, that one contractor isn't awarded 10 buildings and the other one's only awarded 2 buildings.
Yeah.
So I think this is going to be an eye-opening process for all of us. I've never been through it. I don't know if anyone here has been, but it'll be
Not that I
interesting.
know of. So keep your eyes open and be aware.
Yep. So that's really why we're talking about it. Just so
Yeah.
when we talk about the 10-year capital plan and we talk about these large infrastructure projects, that we know in 10 years, because, you know, we are talking about town hall and we're talking about that now, and we just need to know what the impact is if the school does get approved and that's
Yeah.
going to be built in 7 years. What does everything look like? And I think that's really why we're discussing this now.
Okay. Anybody have any further questions on this?
I had a few questions. I guess the first is, you know, this 100K building assessment study, is that to, you know, assess deficiencies in the building from the perspective of, you know, of maintenance or code? Or is that to identify deficiencies in the building in terms of educational outcomes? Or is it both?
That's a great question, Brian. And the way I understand it is it's both. It'll look at the facility and the mechanics of the facility, as well as the educational collaboration piece of the facility.
Okay.
So I don't know if there's one firm that does this. Like I said, the call was in and out, so I didn't get a great picture. But I do have a follow-up call with John Lemieux because he was the presenter. And we're going to work on this RFQ together for the person doing the assessment. So I think it's all in what we put in it. And if this committee wants things in there to make sure that we're getting the best value, then absolutely we should come up with a list together.
Okay. I just, you know, reflecting on the town hall experience, I just feel like, and this is a personal feeling, others may have it or others may not. But it felt to me at a lot of times that there was a focus on, you know, on all the deferred maintenance, as opposed to a focus on, you know, justifying the project based on functionality needs and deficiencies. And I think at the end of the day, that's really what justifies a new building. It's not, you know, how far down the path of deferring all the maintenance have you gone? Because, you know, you can always do the maintenance, right?
Right.
But that's a completely personal perspective. Others may or may not agree. I just found that when they really started focusing on the functionality of the building, they got more traction with town hall versus, you know, pointing out all the little things that were wrong with it.
Yeah.
I agree.
Brian, I agree with that.
Yeah,
Go
I agree
ahead,
with you.
Ralph.
Yeah.
I agree with your approach. I think that's a good thought process. Anything further on the school facilities now that we've been informed? So keep your eyes open because here it comes. Michelle, you had a reorganization on the agenda. I would like to defer that right now because we're missing 2 members.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
That
I'd
was
rather
just,
get the whole committee together
sure.
before we do a reorganization. I think that's the only fair way to do it.
Yep, and I just put that on there. Like I said, I just took some notes from our last meeting just to get an agenda posted. So absolutely.
Well, I thank you for posting it because I didn't have the capability to make it in time.
Not a problem.
I don't know if anybody wants to look at past minutes. If anybody had a chance to look at them.
I did, Sam. They didn't find their way into this agenda, but they were on the last agenda. And so I did pull them up and review them, and they both looked fine to me.
Do you want to propose?
Only if others are ready and we have a quorum of people that have reviewed them.
Have you reviewed them, Francine?
I have not yet, no, I'm sorry.
Ralph, have you reviewed them?
No, I was looking for them and I didn't find them. I thought you were going to send a couple of them out, but I didn't see them. So,
Well, I might have failed on that.
yeah.
So
I
we
didn't-
won't vote on any minutes.
Okay.
You can see why I need to be replaced. I'm missing.
No, I don't
out.
agree with that.
Hardly, Sam.
No.
Well, if anybody's interested, I will entertain a motion to.
Well, actually, just before we go, I do have one question. Having gone through these minutes, one of those meetings was an update on all of our approved articles. In fact, they both were to some degree, but one of them was fairly granular. And I guess, Michelle, just a quick question for you. The air handler / HVAC units that are going on top of the gyms, both at the middle high school and the Deer Hill School, what is the current status with regards to the grant funding that is available for those projects?
So unfortunately, I don't have an answer for you.
Okay.
I know Susan kind of took those over.
Yeah.
She put them, I was told a couple of weeks ago, they were out on the street, they were out to bid. I haven't heard, I don't know when they're due. I really haven't been following them,
Okay.
but I'm sure she could give you an update.
Okay, I'll reach out to Susan. I just want to make sure that if there's a few $100,000 worth of grant funding on those, that we're in fact going and retrieving it.
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay. Refresh my memory. What was the name of the program? Was that MSBA?
Yep, there was an accelerated repair program.
Yep.
And then there's also just the good old MSBA program, whereas if you're not ready for an entire school, it doesn't preclude you from applying for a roof, boilers, windows, things of that nature.
Yep.
But I'm by no means an expert in MSBA,
Okay.
learning as I go along.
Anything else? Anybody want to make a motion to adjourn?
So move, Sam.
Thank you, Ralph. Any second?
I'll second.
Ryan, thank you. All those in favor, Ralph,
Ralph, aye.
Sam, aye. Francine,
Francine, aye.
Brian,
Brian Host, aye.
Michelle, do you want to vote?
No, thank you.
It won't count, but you can vote. Well, thank you all very much. I'm sorry for the confusion on this. I'll see when I can put together another meeting so we can do a reorganization and let you all know. And also, I will try to remember to send out all the minutes that I think we have to be approved, okay?
Thanks.
So you should all get them.
Sure.
Thank you all.
Sam, as we think about the timing of the next meeting, do we have any idea when the capital budget requests are going to be in and when we might want to think about putting this on a calendar?
They're supposed to be in by now, aren't they?
So they are. They're in. Chris, myself, and Dawn reviewed facilities. We reviewed some of DPW. What else did we put off IT, and then there was the storm. But I believe we're going to be meeting with schools next and IT to wrap those up. And as soon as those are all wrapped up, I'll throw them in the folder. But I won't have that comprehensive 10-year plan done until everything's approved, but I'll throw the individual requests in the folder. So you can see what's coming your way.
That would be great.
Okay.
And just let us know when you've been able to do it, and then we
Sure.
can send everybody into the folder to make a mess.
Okay.
Okay, well, thank you all very much.
All right.
Okay,
Thank you. Have a good night.
Have a
You
great
too.
night,
Get
everyone.
back to your storm cleanup if you have any.
Thank you.